10 solos, 1 decade, and the arguments they've started haven't stopped since. We're talking about the 1970s, the most fertile 10 years in the history of the electric guitar, before the shred era, before Pro Tools, before anyone could fix a single note in post, just players in rooms, running tape, and making history with whatever happened to come through their fingers. You've heard these solos. You've hummed them in traffic. You've done the air guitar when no one was looking. And a few of you have done it when people were very much looking. But I'm going to tell you the stories behind them, the rooms they were made in, the fights and accidents and instructions that shouldn't have worked but did. Some of these solos took years of a person's whole life to finally arrive. Some came in a single take, almost by accident. One was almost left off the album entirely because the producer didn't think it was a real song. One was born from a very specific instruction given by a man on LSD who said 3 words that changed everything. The decade is 1970. To 1979. 10 solos. And by the time we get to number 1, I think you'll feel differently about the song you've already heard 1,000 times. Let's start at 10. Number 10, Sultans of Swing, Dire Straits, 1978.
Sound of the river, you stop and you hold everything.
I know some of you are already in the comments saying this belongs higher. You're not wrong, but stay with me. Sultans of Swing, Dire Straits, 1978. Mark Knopfler. Here's what most people don't know about this one. Knopfler wrote the whole thing on a National steel guitar, played it back, listened to the whole demo, and decided it sounded, his own word, dull. Something was missing at the center of it. He couldn't name what. Then he picked up a Fender Stratocaster, and the song, in his words, came alive.
More things.
That should stop you for a second. Because the same chord progression, the same tempo, the same songwriter, and the difference between dull and alive was a different guitar. That's how much tone matters. That's how much the right instrument matters. Now, the first guitar solo. This is where Knopfler does something that almost no one in rock was doing in 1978. He's not using a pick, not a single note. He's finger picking that Stratocaster. Bare fingers, the way you play a classical guitar, through a clean Fender twin amp with 0 grit.
Competition in other places.
And what comes out is this lyrical, sighing thing that sounds almost like a voice. Chet Atkins by way of a rock band in a pub. It's delicate, it's conversational. It sounds like it was played once and captured, but the first solo is just the setup. The outro is the payload, because Knopfler builds from those elegant, sighing single note runs, and then he opens the throttle. 16th note arpeggios, completely clean, precise, a building and building until the thing finally explodes into something that shouldn't be physically possible with 2 bare fingers and no pick. And
make the scene. He's got a daytime.
And what's remarkable is that he doesn't rush to get there. He earns it. Every note leads to the next. And when the full thing finally opens up, it feels like the solo was always going somewhere. You just couldn't see the destination until you arrived. If you've ever tried to explain to someone who wasn't already a guitar player why clean tone can hit harder than distortion, you play them that outro. That's the answer. That's the whole lesson. Sultans of Swing went top 10 in the UK and the US in 1979. Mark Knopfler was 28 years old, recording his first major label album. Nobody knew his name outside of the small circuit where Dire Straits had been playing pub gigs. And he stepped up and played something that guitarists are still breaking down into tabs 50 years later. If you're nodding right now, you already know. Number 9, Highway Star, Deep Purple, 1972. might be the most misunderstood solo on this entire list because most people hear it as pure aggression, and they miss what Blackmore was actually doing. Highway Star, Deep Purple, 1972, Ritchie Blackmore. Here's the origin story. The band is on a tour bus somewhere in England, heading to Portsmouth for a show in 1971. A journalist on the bus asked how they write songs. Just conversation. Probably not expecting a demonstration. Blackmore picks up an acoustic guitar, starts pounding a single G note over and over, and Ian Gillan improvises lyrics right there in the aisle. About a car, about speed, about going faster than anyone can follow. They refine it enough to play it that same night at the gig. That's how Highway Star was born, on a bus in about 30 minutes. Now, the solo is where Blackmore does something that separated him from almost everyone else playing rock guitar in 1972. He went home a week before the recording session and wrote the solo out, note for note, on paper. That was one of the only times in his career he ever did that, because he wanted a very specific sound, the sound of Bach. He designed the chord progression under the solo, D minor, G minor, C major, A major, as a direct lift from Baroque harmony. And then he worked out those locked, descending, arpeggiated runs that cascade down the neck at a speed that sounds almost mechanical. I wanted it to sound like someone driving in a fast car, Blackmore said. And I wanted a very definite Bach sound, which is why I played those rigid arpeggios across that very familiar Bach progression. Gee, I believe that I was the first person to do that so obviously on the guitar. Now, I know, Bach influence in a rock solo sounds like something from a music theory lecture, but put the track on and close your eyes, you can hear it instantly. The precision of those runs, the way they fall in mathematical sequence, the absolute absence of any looseness or improvisation. It sounds like a machine operating at its limit. The Guardian described Blackmore's live version for Made in Japan as like a force of nature. That's not press copy. That's just accurate. And here's the part that matters beyond the music itself. What Ritchie Blackmore mapped out in that solo became a template, combining classical harmonic logic with electric guitar energy. That architecture is in the foundation of every shred player, every neoclassical guitarist. And every technical metal guitarist who came after him. They all owe a debt to this solo, whether they know the name of the song or not. Recorded in a Swiss hotel corridor after their original venue burned down, which for Machine Head was basically the setting.
Let's look at the numbers. Only 9% of you are actually subscribed. Honestly, that's tough to see. Our team spends days hunting down archives and verifying every single fact just to tell these stories right. If you've made it this far into the video, you're clearly part of the community, so please hit subscribe. It costs nothing and helps us immensely. Now, for those already subscribed, very few of you have made the jump to our membership, and that's a hard pill to swallow because you're the ones who know our value best. If this channel has moved you or inspired you, consider joining. It's the price of one coffee, but it's the literal fuel for this channel. Let's keep this alive together. Back to the story.
Number 8, Maggot Brain, Funkadelic, 1971. I want to be upfront with you. This entry lives on a completely different plane from everything else on this list. Not better, not worse, different. In the way that grief is different from everything else you feel. Maggot Brain, Funkadelic, 1971, Eddie Hazel. You need to know where this came from. George Clinton is at United Sound Systems in Detroit, late 1970. early 1971. He's making Funkadelic's third album. On the day they're recording the title track, Clinton is on LSD, not lightly, seriously. And he stands in front of his 20-year-old lead guitarist, Eddie Hazel, and he gives him one instruction. Play like you just found out your mother died, and then play like you found out she's still alive. That's the entire brief, 3 sentences, and then the tape starts. Hazel picks up his guitar, fuzz pedal, wah-wah, a Marshall stack behind him, and he plays. One take, 10 continuous minutes. What comes out of those speakers in that Detroit studio sounds like grief learning to breathe in a foreign language. Clinton stood there and watched, and he later wrote that he could see the guitar notes stretching out like a silver web in front of him. He said it was good beyond good, not only a virtuoso display of musicianship, but also an almost unprecedented moment of emotion in pop music. Then he did something that makes that recording what it is. He took the full band that had been playing behind Hazel, drums, bass, keyboards, and he faded almost all of it out, isolated the guitar, echoplexed it back on itself 3 or 4 times in the mix until the whole thing had this eerie, reverberating quality. He wanted you alone with every note Hazel was playing, and if you've heard it, and I'll say this directly, it rewards the full 10 minutes. Don't skip to the interesting part. It's all the interesting part. Here's where the weight comes in, because Eddie Hazel was one of the most gifted guitarists of his entire generation, and almost no one outside of music circles knows his name. He left Funkadelic the same year Maggot Brain came out, financial dispute with Clinton. He spent time in prison. He struggled with addiction. He had one solo album in 1977, Games, Dames, and Guitar Things, that went mostly unnoticed. He made occasional contributions to P-Funk Records over the following decade. And on December 23, 1992, Eddie Hazel died of liver failure. He was 42 years old. Flea of the Red Hot Chili Peppers once said, "Eddie Hazel's right up there with Jimi Hendrix." He's absolutely right. He just said it 30 years too late. At Hazel's funeral, they played Maggot Brain, number 7, Layla, Derek and the Dominoes, 1970. And this one has 2 guitar players and a story that makes the music almost unbearable to listen to once you know it. Layla, Derek and the Dominoes, 1970, Clapton and Duane Allman. Eric Clapton arrived in Miami at Criteria Studios in late August 1970 in a specific kind of pain. He was in love with Patty Boyd, George Harrison's wife, his best friend's wife. He'd even named the band Derek and the Dominoes to hide himself because the album he was making was too personal to put his name on. He couldn't stand the thought of people knowing. Producer Tom Dowd was in Miami at the same time, working on the Allman Brothers' second album. He told Clapton that Duane Allman was playing a concert nearby. Clapton went, and the moment he watched Duane play from the front row, Clapton said later that he just sat there and felt like everything he was doing was being matched and exceeded by somebody already in the room. Allman turned around mid-solo, opened his eyes, and saw Eric Clapton standing right in front of the stage. He froze completely, stopped playing. Dickie Betts picked up where he left off, but when he followed Allman's eye line to Clapton, Betts had to physically turn his back to keep playing. They brought everyone back to Criteria after the show and jammed until 3 the next afternoon. And Dowd, a man who'd recorded Coltrane and Aretha Franklin and Ray Charles, said he'd never seen spontaneous inspiration happen at that rate and level. He said it was some sort of telepathy. Layla was recorded on 1970, the last day Allman was available. One shot. What you hear on that record, Clapton's lead answering Allman's slide, two players responding to each other in real time as if they'd been playing together for years, was made in an afternoon with the clock running. Clapton asked Allman to join Derek and the Dominoes permanently. Allman turned him down, loyal to his own band. 14 months after that session, Duane Allman died in a motorcycle accident in Macon, Georgia. He was 24 years old.
Make the best of this situation.
The album was re-released. The full-length version of Layla went top 10 in the UK and the US. By the time people were really hearing it, really understanding what it was, Allman was already gone. Clapton later said that listening back to it felt like listening to someone else, like he wasn't in that band. Like that music didn't quite belong to him anymore. That's a specific kind of grief. Making the best thing you've ever made with someone and then having to keep hearing it alone. And if you've ever built something with people you trusted, something real, something that mattered, and then watched it become untouchable in a way you didn't expect, you know exactly what that cost? What that. Number 6, Hotel California, Eagles, 1977.
And I was thinking to myself,
This one is the story of two guitar players who barely speak to each other, pulling off what might be the most perfectly constructed guitar conversation in the history of rock. Then one of them gets fired from the band 30 years later. Hotel California, the Eagles, 1977, Don Felder and Joe Walsh.
there she stood in the doorway. Heard the mission.
Felder wrote the entire musical framework of this song alone. He's sitting on his rented porch in Malibu in 1976 with a 12-string guitar and a 4-track recorder in the spare bedroom. He's mapping it out, and when he gets to the ending, the place where the guitar solo would eventually live, he makes up both parts. His own part on a Les Paul. Then he sets down the Les Paul, picks up a Stratocaster, switches to a different amp so it sounds like a different player, and plays what he imagines Joe Walsh would play in that space. 2 guitars, 1 person, his bedroom in Malibu.
In the master's chambers, gathered for their feet.
He gives the cassette to Henley and Frey. Henley says he likes the one that sounds like a Mexican reggae or a bolero. That becomes Hotel California. They get to Criteria Studios in Miami to record for real. Felder figures he and Walsh will just plug in and trade off each other naturally. That's what he was expecting, a live conversation. Then Don Henley walked in and stopped them. No, stop, that's not right. He'd heard the demo. He wanted exactly what was on the cassette. Walsh had to listen to Felder's impression of how Walsh would play.
Champagne on ice, and she said, we're all just prisoners.
Felder playing Joe Walsh back to him, and then learn those parts note for note and play them as if they were his own. The final solo runs 2 minutes and 12 seconds of Felder's Les Paul, Walsh's Telecaster, trading phrases until they weave together into that harmonized ending.
You can find it here.
I want to ask you something honestly. Can you sing it right now without thinking, all the way through? I'm betting most of you can. And Felder said that was the whole idea. You can't sing Steve Vai, but if you play simply enough and clearly enough, you can recognize it, remember it, sing it, and relate to it.
Since 1969.
In 1998, readers of Guitarist magazine voted it the best guitar solo ever recorded. Don Felder was fired from the Eagles in 2001. The lawsuit that followed lasted years. He'd written more of Hotel California than anyone else in the band. He never performed it with them again. And whether that was right or wrong, I'll let you decide. But you probably already know which side you're on.
Just to hear them say, welcome to the
Number 5, Free Bird, Leonard Skinner, 1973.
If I stay with you.
If you've ever been at a concert and yelled "Free Bird" as a punchline, I want you to actually hear what Allen Collins built inside that song's outro, because I think you might stop laughing. Free Bird, Leonard Skinner, 1973. Here's what most people don't know. The song started as a pure ballad, no guitar solo. Ronnie Van Zant and Allen Collins had been developing it since 1970. They even recorded a version in 1972, just the slow piano ballad, no extended jam section. And when they brought it to MCA Records, the label told them to release it exactly that way. Cut the long ending, fade it out after the vocal. Nobody would play a 9-minute song on radio.
Yes,
Leonard Skinner said no, that's worth sitting with for a second. The part the label wanted to remove is the part that made the song immortal. The whole conversation about what radio wants versus what music needs, that fight is embedded in the DNA of this track. Collins played the entire solo himself on his Gibson Firebird. He doubled it in the studio, ran the same part twice, back to back, layered, so that what you're hearing is one person responding to himself across 2 separate takes. Gary Rossington was right there in the room. He could have stepped in and played alongside Collins. And Rossington said later, the way he was doing it, he was just so hot. He just did it once and did it again and it was done. Then the 1977 plane crash, a 1948 Convair 240 that band members had been warned about, that ran out of fuel over a Mississippi swamp. Ronnie Van Zant died, Steve Gaines died. Others in the crew. Collins and Rossington survived, badly broken. Collins got back to playing.
if I stay with you.
And then, in 1986, he was driving in Jacksonville, lost control of his car. The crash left him paralyzed from the waist down. As part of his plea agreement for that accident, Allen Collins addressed the audience at every Skinner concert from his wheelchair during the 1987 reunion tour. He'd tell the crowd about the dangers of drinking and driving, and then the band behind him would play Free Bird every night. His music, his creation, the thing that has his fingerprints on every note, playing out across the room while he sat unable to move. Allen Collins died in 1990 of respiratory failure, complications from his paralysis. He was 37 years old, and somewhere in the world right now, Free Bird is playing on a radio and someone is hitting the gas and turning it up. The song that almost didn't have an outro. Number 4, Eruption, Van Halen, 1978. I guarantee at least some of you thought this would be higher on the list. That reaction is exactly why it belongs here. Eruption, Van Halen, 1978, Eddie Van Halen. This was not a song. It was never designed to be a song. It was a warm-up, something Eddie had been refining since at least 1975, playing it in clubs between Van Halen sets to loosen his fingers before they opened. It wasn't a composition. It was a daily practice. The band is at Sunset Sound in Hollywood, recording their debut album. Eddie shows up early one day to rehearse before a weekend gig at the Whiskey. He's running through his solo routine in one of the rooms. Producer Ted Templeman is walking down the hall, hears what's coming through the door, and stops. What is that? Let's put it on tape. One take, no second pass. No going back to fix anything, just capture what's happening and move on. Eddie has said ever since, for his entire career, to anyone who asked, "I didn't even play it right. There's a mistake at the top end of it." To this day, whenever I hear it, I always think, man, I could have played it better. 1 minute and 42 seconds, that's all Eruption is. 102 seconds that hit the rock world like something with a half-life. The two-handed tapping technique, both hands on the fretboard simultaneously, treating the guitar like a keyboard, playing rapid arpeggios that no single-hand approach can reach, wasn't Eddie's invention. Steve Hackett of Genesis had explored it. Harvey Mandel had used it, but nobody had taken it this far, this fast, this melodically. And nobody had made it feel less like a circus trick and more like vocabulary. Within months of Van Halen's debut dropping in February 1978, guitar stores across America were reporting a phenomenon. Customers coming in asking to learn that Van Halen thing. By 1979, teenagers in bedrooms from California to New Jersey were running through the lick in the third bar, over and over, fingers going numb. Eddie later said he found the imitators kind of funny, not dismissively, genuinely amused. He said, "With me, it was a form of expression, part of my style. I was telling a story. I felt other players tended to use tapping as a trick instead of incorporating it into their vocabulary." That's the line between technique and music. And if you've ever wondered where exactly that line falls, Eruption is the example. His classical piano training, rooted in his father's jazz influence, is in every note of that solo. He was playing piano on 6 strings, and nobody fully understood it until it was already everywhere. Number 3, Stairway to Heaven, Led Zeppelin, 1971.
Priceless. Oh!
I know what some of you are thinking, that this is the one that gets played at guitar shops, that it's been parodied so many times it's become almost a joke. I want to tell you about the afternoon this solo was actually recorded, and I think that changes it. Stairway to Heaven, Led Zeppelin, 1971, Jimmy Page. By the time Page went to record the solo, everything else was already done. Vocals, acoustic layers, 12-string electric, 4 recorders played simultaneously, overdub after overdub. Page had produced every piece of it, supervised every hour of it, and he always left his solos for last deliberately, because by then, in his words, you've really lived the track. He reached for a 1959 Fender Telecaster, not his Les Paul, a Telecaster that Jeff Beck had given him, the same guitar Page had played on the very first Led Zeppelin record, the guitar he'd used during his entire tenure with the Yardbirds. He called it a magical guitar. Not for show, he meant it. Engineer Andy Johns was in the control room. Page ran a few passes, and John said later, he hadn't completely figured it out. He'd done a few passes and it wasn't going anywhere. And then something shifted. Page said, I just said roll it. Took a deep breath, that's what I usually do, and then go. I had the first 2 or 3 notes worked out, but after that I just played it. Stream of consciousness. No plan beyond the opening phrase. He described it as more like a stream of consciousness than a solo. You can tell that it's just flying. It's not labored, not worked out, or not written down and read. 3 improvised passes total. He kept one. And then Page said something that I've thought about a lot. He said, is Stairway to Heaven my best Zeppelin guitar solo? No, but it's pretty damn good. There are others I prefer. He said it without bitterness, like a craftsman acknowledging that other pieces were technically more advanced. but the public chose this one, and he accepted it.
Remember that.
There's something quietly honest about that. Making something almost by accident. Having people hearing it exactly what they needed to hear. And then living for 50 years knowing it defines you. Even if you knew you'd done harder, better, stranger things, you know that solo. Right now, you can hum every note. And the reason it works, still, is that Page made room for something to come through him that afternoon instead of executing a plan. That's not a technique, that's a relationship with the moment.
Wait a minute.
Number 2, Bohemian Rhapsody, Queen, 1975. This one asks you to zoom out before we get to the solo itself, because what Brian May does here only makes sense when you understand where it lives inside the song. Bohemian Rhapsody. Queen, 1975. Brian May, Freddie Mercury brought this song into the studio as a completed architecture. The slow ballad, the operatic middle section, the hard rock finale, the return, all of it mapped out in his head before anyone else in the band touched an instrument. He sat at the piano and played it through for the band from start to finish. The different sections, the dramatic tempo changes, the key modulations that shouldn't work and somehow do. And when he finished, Roger Taylor said the room went quiet. Mercury had zero interest in shortening it. The label wanted under 3 minutes for radio. Mercury's position was essentially, this is the record, take it or don't. And a DJ named Kenny Everett got a pre-release copy and played it 14 times in a single weekend. The station switchboard melted. By the time the label released it properly, the song had already escaped their control. Now, Brian May's role, he had to do something precise. After the Galileo operatic section, that cascade of layered voices, he had to build a guitar solo that functioned as a pressure release, a moment of pure instrument that let you breathe before Mercury came back swinging into the final hard rock section. 20 seconds roughly, a brief solo that had to be the emotional fulcrum of a 6-minute piece. He used his red special, the guitar he'd built by hand with his father Harold, the neck carved from a fireplace mantle. The tremolo system adapted from a motorcycle valve assembly, the whole instrument assembled from parts that were never meant to be a guitar. No other instrument in rock history was built from scratch by a physics student and his father in a suburban British garage, and went on to play on a piece of music this important. Through a stack of Dallas Rangemaster treble boosters, the red special has a tone that doesn't belong to any other category. Warm, slightly compressed, bright without edging into shrill.
Oh, mamma mia, mamma mia, mamma mia, let me go.
And in those 20 seconds, May phrases every single note like a singer reaching for a high note. His bends breathe. His held notes have weight. You can hum his guitar solo the same way you can hum the vocal melody, because he was always doing the same thing as the singer, just with different equipment. Queen were turned down. Told the song was too long, too weird in structure, too uncommercial, and they released it anyway. And if you've ever done a thing the right way, when everyone around you said the wrong way was smarter, you know that Bohemian Rhapsody doesn't exist without that stubbornness. Number 1, Comfortably Numb, Pink Floyd, 1979.
When I was a child,
I want to say something before we get into the story. The Wall, the album this song is buried in the middle of, was being made by a band that was already breaking apart. Roger Waters and David Gilmour had been drifting toward opposite ends of the same gravity for years. They were fighting about the record, about the sound, about the arrangements, about who the band was and who owned the idea of it. The recording process for The Wall was, by everyone who was there's account, a sustained exercise in controlled hostility. And somehow, in the middle of all of that, they made Comfortably Numb. Here's where it started. In 1978, Gilmour was recording his first solo album. He was working on a piece of music, wordless, just chord structure and melody, and he couldn't quite place it. Couldn't find what it was trying to be. He set it aside. Producer Bob Ezrin heard it during a session, immediately understood something about it, and convinced Gilmour to play it for the rest of the band. Waters heard it and wrote a lyric in one sitting about the night in 1977 when a doctor injected him with tranquilizers backstage before a show so he could perform for an audience of thousands while barely able to stand. Then they fought about the arrangement. Waters wanted an orchestra. Gilmour wanted it stripped down, harder, more direct. They argued long enough and deeply enough that they compromised. Orchestral arrangement for the body of the song, Gilmour's stripped-down mix for the final guitar solo. Gilmour later said that Comfortably Numb was the last embers of his ability to work constructively with Roger Waters. His exact words, "The last time." After this, nothing collaborative would be possible between them. Now, the actual solo. Gilmour recorded 5 or 6 complete takes in that session. He sat down afterward with a piece of paper, listened back methodically to every pass, and marked which bars from which take had the best moments. Then he went to the mixing console and started pulling faders, one up, another up, jumping from take to take, phrase to phrase, assembling a composite from the best moments of each performance. "That's the way we did it on Comfortably Numb," Gilmour said. And then Bob Ezrin, the producer who was in the room for all of it, told Total Guitar this: "The second solo in Comfortably Numb, which may be the best solo of all time, is actually a first take. The second solo, the long one, the one at the end of the song, the one that every poll, Planet Rock listeners, Guitar World readers, Guitarist Magazine, Classic Rock voters, names the greatest guitar solo ever recorded. That one, first take."
But I can't hear what you're saying.
Gilmour walked in, plugged his black Stratocaster into a high-watt amp and a Yamaha rotary speaker cabinet, engaged a big muff distortion and a delay unit, and played that. One pass. Done. During the Wall tour, they built a physical wall across the stage, brick by brick, during the first half of the show, until it was 40 feet high and completely separated the band from the audience. And during Comfortably Numb, Gilmour stood at the very top of it, spotlights behind him, the solo in his hands, the audience on the other side of something he couldn't see over. That image works as a metaphor in every direction you point it. Waters and Gilmour would spend years in legal battles over the Pink Floyd name after The Wall. The band broke up, reunited, fought again, made one final album together without ever being in the same room.
That'll keep you going through the show.
The solo outlived all of it, unchanged. It doesn't know about the fight. It doesn't care about the court case. It just keeps playing right at the end of that wall, that space where the noise and the silence meet, and doing the thing that almost no piece of music in history has ever managed to do, sounding like something that was always going to be true.
Your lips